Tonight, a tenuous peace deal hangs in the balance as the U.S. deadline approaches for Hamas to release all the remaining hostages.
You know, I'm shaking here. The hostages, they deserve to be home.
Adrian is on the ground in Israel as both sides cling to hope, even as strikes on Gaza continue.
This is not acceptable for us as Palestinians.
Plus, we're here in Edmonton, where the fight against drug poisonings is getting some controversial new tools.
The folks that we need to worry about are the people who are on our streets dying today.
Alberta's Compassionate Intervention Act is the first of its kind in Canada. But should treatment for addiction ever be mandatory? And teachers in Alberta are about to walk off the job.
A prolonged strike will be devastating to us.
How parents are scrambling to make arrangements.
From CBC News, this is The National with Ian Hannah-Mansing in Edmonton.
We are in Alberta tonight, a province acutely affected by Canada's overdose crisis, and one that's taking a vastly different approach to treating people who are fighting addiction. The method, involuntary treatment, long promised by the government, work to build dedicated facilities is set to begin in a matter of months. But of course, forcing Albertans to receive care is a contentious approach, one that we'll discuss from all angles in tonight's program. But first, we're just 2 days away from marking 2 years since the October 7th massacre, a day of reflection and one in which we'll have team coverage in the region and beyond. Leading that team, Adrian, who's in Tel Aviv, watching tonight's developments closely. And Adrian, there's movement on the negotiation front.
Yeah, absolutely, Ian. We do have confirmation tonight that Israeli negotiators are heading to Egypt in an attempt to expedite talks to free the remaining hostages. You know, that comes as a precarious partial deal is still seemingly in place, although the immediate, tangible impact is pretty murky and many critical aspects are far from sorted. Now, among them, the bombing in Gaza has not stopped, directly contradicting Donald Trump's initial demand. And the U.S. president's 72-hour deadline to release the hostages, it is rapidly approaching with no new sense of whether Hamas will deliver. But tonight, Trump is doubling down, saying if Hamas tries to cling to power, it faces complete obliteration. With that threat lingering, of course, anxiety is palpable among those hoping for a breakthrough and a prolonged period of peace. Paul Hunter is just down the highway in Jerusalem for us tonight, tracking the push for a deal as the pressure reaches a new high.
On Gaza's skyline, billowing smoke rising over ruined buildings, once again a reminder the war's not over yet. From its streets, as both sides in the nearly 2-year war get set to maybe sort the final details of that U.S. proposed peace plan, frustration. Trump told Israel to stop the war, said Mohammed Awad. But we still have people being killed every day. There are dead every day. In Israel, with demonstrators again demanding an end to the war and the release of the remaining hostages still held by Hamas, tears as images of hostages appear on screen, mixed with cautious optimism, the peace plan will be accepted, that their return is now imminent.
Yeah, I'm shaking here. The hostages, they deserve to be home. Enough. I want to believe, and I believe.
To that end, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is sending his team of negotiators to Cairo for those talks with intermediators who will then meet with Hamas. Brokered by the U.S., in Washington, Donald Trump called it a great deal and said everybody's pretty much agreed to it.
I tell you, it's amazing. You're going to have peace, if you think about it, peace in the Middle East for the first time in, they say, really 3,000 years.
Trump also posting on social media this map of the Gaza Strip, the yellow line marking a large stretch of land in which Israeli forces could remain during the deal's early stages. That brought more pessimism back in Gaza.
This is not acceptable for us as Palestinians because that means that the Israelis will stay in Gaza.
And just a few hundred meters outside the Gaza Strip, Israeli settlers already pressing for that, making clear no matter what the world may say, They're pushing for Israel to move in on Gaza broadly.
A demand for the government of Israel to reclaim Gaza, to build settlements, Jewish cities inside Gaza.
You would move to Gaza. You would do that yourself.
I am ready to be moving to Gaza any minute, any day.
That such a thing would be directly against the proposed U.S. peace plan, Adrian, would seem to be beside the point, as all sides now get set for those talks in Cairo.
Now, Paul, and every indication is those negotiations are really expected to heat up in just a few hours.
Yeah, and pressure's mounting, including from Donald Trump. You saw in the piece that Trump seems to be extremely optimistic about things right now, but at the same time, there's word tonight. He's saying that if Hamas tries to hang on to power in Gaza, it faces, in his words, complete obliteration. Adrian.
All right, that is Paul Hunter in Jerusalem. Now, over the next few days, we're going to be sharing several stories we've been gathering from both the Israeli and Palestinian perspectives. Complicated views, as you can imagine, on each side. What seems to be uniformly the same, though, is the frustration and anxiety about deadlines that are changed and red lines that are crossed all the time. We just keep seeing that happen, and it plays with people's emotions and patience. Thinking about this city, Tel Aviv in particular, there isn't a street you can pass by here that doesn't have pictures of the hostages on posters, yellow ribbons, signs to bring them home. Israelis have allowed themselves to believe the hostages are coming home imminently, but even as they hope, they also have no more trust in anyone. We spent some time today at the site of the Nova Music Festival. That's where 378 people were massacred, 44 taken hostage, thousands injured or hunted by Hamas. It's a memorial site now. It is very close to the border with Gaza, so you still see a very heavy military presence. And even as we were talking with a survivor about healing, it was clear that calm isn't here yet. When did you start to feel safe? Sorry.
I'm okay. I don't know if there is a deal by now.
Doesn't sound like a deal.
Not really, but
So you can feel the stress there. Critically, also, we're talking with the family of a hostage who's still in Gaza, who, as of now, they believe their son is alive and could very well be out soon. The wait is excruciating. Connecting with Palestinians from Gaza has been tough because, as journalists, we are barred from getting in. So what we did is we went to Egypt to meet with some people who had managed to flee the Strip, some of them with horrific war wounds. You'll see in the days to come what coping has been like for them. And Cairo, of course, it is about to be the center of the conversation about peace talks, which are due to start in just a few hours. So we'll be watching all those talks very carefully. For at least the next 2 nights, we'll be hosting the National from right here in Tel Aviv, ideally with some good news. But for now, it's back to Ian in Edmonton.
Thanks, Adrian. Well, back here in Canada, there's also anxiety and anticipation about what could happen next, especially for those with connections to the region. Lisa Shing was at a ceremony tonight ahead of the anniversary of the October 7th attacks.
As Toronto's Jewish community begins to mark October 7th with ceremonies like this one, the prospect a peace deal could be close looms large.
I think there's cautious optimism. I don't think we've seen the entire world unify around a plan like they have around this U.S.-led initiative.
Hamas's attacks on Israel left about 1,200 people dead, 251 taken hostage. About half have been returned alive, and now renewed hope.
Hopefully the hostages can be returned home, back home safe, and however we can get to that point is what I feel is the best path forward.
Israel's ensuing campaign in Gaza has leveled the region, left tens of thousands of Palestinians dead, thousands more starving. That's also on the minds of those here.
I've been depressed for the last 2 years. It's been very uncomfortable, and for once, I think we're turning over the leaf.
While talks over the implementation of U.S. President Donald Trump's peace plan continue and witnesses report shelling hasn't stopped, some Canadians say that's not acceptable.
And Israel has continued bombing even after Trump said explicitly to stop.
The devastation has reverberated around the world, Israel becoming increasingly isolated even from allies like Canada, which recently recognized a Palestinian state along with other countries at the UN. Many are calling for an end to the killing and to the suffering in Gaza.
When we no longer see Israel controlling the access of medication, food, water, and control of over all the resources in Gaza, then we will know that there is actual, tangible, positive steps.
Positivity, at times the only thing keeping them going. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
This Ukrainian woman describing how she ran into the street as Russian strikes razed her neighborhood. Ballistic missiles and hundreds of drones were launched into 9 regions of Ukraine, and officials say the target was civilian infrastructure. At least 5 people were killed, including a 15-year-old. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the West's inadequate response has emboldened Russia to escalate strikes aimed at making daily life unbearable. There's optimism tonight from Ottawa ahead of a meeting set for Tuesday between Mark Carney and Donald Trump about potential relief on steel and aluminum tariffs. But even if there is a breakthrough, there's a new concern: Canadian lumber. JP Tasker now with more on what's at stake.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is headed back to Washington for his second high-stakes Oval Office meeting. The last one was cordial.
Canada's a very special place to me. I know so many people that live in Canada.
But in the 5 months since, U.S. President Donald Trump has only ramped up the trade pressure on Canada, adding new tariffs and hiking others.
There's one guy, maybe 2 guys, that are a problem, and we know who they are.
Ontario's premier is urging Carney to take a hard line with Trump.
We will not waver. A message to the Prime Minister: you're going down there Tuesday, you better fight like hell, don't roll over, and keep fighting.
Canada has been fighting behind the scenes ahead of the visit. Senior government officials tell CBC News there is optimism about a breakthrough on the punishing steel and aluminum tariffs. But Canada's forestry sector is also reeling. Trump's new duties run as high as 45% on softwood lumber.
Most of our product, about 90% of it, goes into the United States as a market.
John Brink has already laid off some 300 people from his wood products firm in BC. He hopes Carney can get the president to back off.
I think it is a time to be optimistic. I see motion in all the right directions.
This expert on Canada-U.S. relations expects Carney to leave D.C. having made some progress.
I think they will have something to announce, and it's going to be something that the president will be broadly supportive of, and he will be glad to have someone of Mark Carney's stature there with him.
And yet the president still seems committed to tariffs as a big revenue generator.
Your tariffs are going to be over $1 trillion a year, in my opinion.
The last time these two leaders came face to face, Carney described the meeting as constructive. But with pressure building at home for a deal, the prime minister may have to deliver more than that this time around. JP Tasker, CBC News, Ottawa.
Donald Trump is doubling down on his fight to send the military to Democratic-led cities. Tonight, California National Guard members are arriving in Portland, Oregon, a move that comes after a judge blocked the deployment of Oregon troops. Ashley Burke has more on Trump's crackdown and those calling it an abuse of power.
The U.S. Navy putting on a show for a president trying to send federal troops to Democrat-run cities. Donald Trump authorizing the National Guard to deploy in Chicago and Portland, just like he did in the U.S. Capitol.
You know what? We send in what's ever necessary. People don't care. They don't want crime in their cities.
And nothing seems to be stopping him. Not even this temporary restraining order from a federal judge appointed by Trump. She ruled that sending National Guard troops to Portland risks blurring the line between civil and military federal power to the detriment of this nation. But Trump went ahead anyway, sending troops to Oregon from California instead.
The judge's order was not some minor procedural point for the president to work around like my 14-year-old does when he doesn't like my answers.
Trump justifying what he's doing by pointing to ongoing immigration-related protests, saying troops are needed to protect federal workers and properties, but protesters dispute that.
They are being painted in some press outlets and by Donald Trump as agitators, as people who don't belong here, who are causing violence, and nothing could be further from the truth.
These demonstrators say they were pepper sprayed.
I couldn't get air into my lungs. I think that was probably one of the scariest parts.
After federal agents shot a woman in Chicago, who authorities say rammed into a law enforcement vehicle, Trump's Homeland Security Secretary said this.
This is a war zone.
Illinois' governor firing back.
They are the ones that are making it a war zone. They need to get out of Chicago.
But there's no sign the president's backing down. The state of Oregon plans to return to court to challenge Trump's latest move after about 100 federal troops from California already arrived. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Washington.
And later in the show, we'll take a deeper dive into why the U.S. president is so fixated on Portland. That's coming up in the breakdown. Starting Monday morning, every teacher across Alberta is set to walk off the job. That's a first for this province. Sam Sampson shows us how parents are scrambling.
Young like a hippo.
9-year-old Jackson Rummig has his favorite book down pat.
Wiggle like a worm. Peck like a woodpecker.
The grade 4 student lives with autism and loves learning and routine, but a teacher's strike expected Monday will throw all of that way off.
Him being in a specialized class is better for him with his sensory needs related to noise.
And without it?
It'll be difficult.
Jackson needs 24-hour care, but respite workers are not funded during school hours. His father can't work from home, so his mom will set aside her full-time schooling to make things work.
A prolonged strike will be devastating to us and to my education.
To help with emergency childcare, the province promised parents of children 12 and under $30 a day per child while the strike is underway.
We fully support the teachers.
This mom of 3 school-aged children, one living with a disability, says she'd rather see that money go to teachers.
It's not going to cover childcare for typical kids, and it's definitely not going to cover childcare for kids with exceptionalities or disabilities.
Public support is widespread, with Sunday rallies across Alberta.
Fair deal now! Fair deal now!
Teachers want more money, a cap on classroom sizes, and more resources for kids with complex needs.
In a province that is so wealthy in resources, we need to invest in the most important resource, which are our children and our people.
Our daughter's been in class sizes with 43 children in them, and that doesn't let, it's shocking. It doesn't let teachers do what we know how to do with kids. We can't support kids the way we want to.
The last provincial offer was a 12% increase in wages and hiring 3,000 more teachers. The Alberta Teachers Association rejected that offer, saying it just wasn't enough.
Teachers are resolved. They're committed to making sure that they can make their classrooms better because they've had enough of watching kids fall through the cracks.
Alberta's Premier Danielle Smith did say she wants the union to call off the strike, calling it a lose-lose-lose situation for teachers, students, and parents.
And Sam, where are negotiations at?
Well, a government spokesperson told CBC News today that the government asked the union to get back to the bargaining table over the weekend, but they say the union was not available for formal talks. Now, at that rally, the union president told us that both sides are communicating, but he said the strike is imminent.
Sam Sampson, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alberta is pushing ahead with a controversial bill that would mandate treatment for people with severe addictions.
We need whatever resources are available to stop the onslaught of deaths that we're seeing.
We're in Edmonton tonight, hearing from people about why this may help or hurt. There's outrage in Hollywood over an AI actor.
Tilly Norwood, 100% AI generated.
What the animated avatar signals for the future of entertainment. And next, a milestone postseason debut for rookie pitcher Trey Yesavage.
With 45,000 fans, Trey's in good hands. It's all our Canadian family, that's for sure.
The family looks back on his journey to the Jays. We're back in 2. The Toronto Blue Jays are one win away from a spot in the American League Championship Series after another victory over the New York Yankees. Key to the win, a star rookie pitcher on a remarkable journey. Thomas Dagla on the record-breaking performance in front of an emotional family.
All aboard the bandwagon. With the Blue Jays off to a blistering start, fall baseball fever is spreading.
The thing that we have now is confidence and belief.
Let's go Blue Jays, #1!
Enter Trey Yesavage, the 22-year-old rookie pitcher set to start Game 2 against the Yankees. And boy, did he deliver. Got him! With a big-time strikeout, then another. And on he went.
And he struck out the side again.
His family taking it all in.
He built a pitcher's mound in the backyard, and then he would throw at a target if one of us wasn't around to catch the ball.
Parents Dave and Cheryl Yesavage traveled from Pennsylvania, where their son played Little League and showed promise early on. Just this year, he surged through the Jays' 4 minor league affiliate teams, landing in the majors just last month.
What would you have said if a year ago right now, someone predicted to you exactly what would be happening on this day in October 2025?
This was a dream for us and for him, but never in a million years, a year later, will we be here.
And at bat, the Jays kept blasting. A pair of homers for Dalton Varsho, and from Vladimir Guerrero Jr., a first-ever postseason grand slam. As for Yesavage, that's a well-earned standing ovation after a record-breaking 11 strikeouts.
It's something I've never felt before, the energy and the passion that this fan base has.
The final score, 13-7 for Toronto, sending fans home elated.
It's the second straight night the Jays scored double digits on their way to defeating the Yankees. The two teams face each other next Tuesday in New York, with the Jays now one win away from advancing to the American League Championship Series. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Toronto.
Hollywood is firing back at an AI-generated actor.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Because you can always tell them from us.
Insiders warn the rise of synthetic talent could cost the industry its creativity. Plus, we're in Edmonton hearing your reactions to a contentious bill trying to tackle Alberta's drug problem.
Well, unless they're playing false tapes, this looked like World War II.
And Donald Trump insists Portland is a lawless land. But people who live there tell a different story. The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next.
You might not know these, but I'm doing the Super Bowl halftime show, and I think everyone is happy about it.
Puerto Rican superstar Bad Bunny kicking off Saturday Night Live's season premiere last night, addressing critics in a bilingual opening monologue. He's faced conservative backlash since being tapped to headline the 2026 Super Bowl halftime show, including comments from the U.S. Homeland Security Secretary that she'll send ICE agents to the game. Tilly Norwood is not real, but Hollywood's taking her very seriously. The AI-generated actor looks and sounds human, and as Magda Gebrselassie explains, it's sparking backlash for blurring the line between real and artificial talent.
3 seasons and a podcast.
Bragging about getting gigs and battling a villain. Meet the latest creation from the world of artificial intelligence.
Tilly Norwood, 100% AI generated.
The European company Particle 6 is presenting her as an actress. The CEO says she's been meeting with entertainment companies, and Norwood could be represented by a talent agency in the next few months. Real-life actors are outraged. Here's what Emily Blunt told a Variety podcast.
Good Lord. We're screwed. That is really, really scary. Come on, agencies. Don't do that.
The AI has an unfair advantage, says Whoopi Goldberg.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Because you can always tell them from us.
Taking up the fight, too, is SAG-AFTRA, the union representing actors in the U.S. It released a statement saying creativity is and should remain human-centered, and that this is jeopardizing performer livelihoods. ACTRA, the union in Canada, is pushing back on Norwood, too.
It is 100% not an actor. It's an amalgamation of probably hundreds, if not thousands, of professional actors, performers, who have not been compensated at all for this.
The unions have already fought and won some AI protections for actors, including consent and compensation for reproductions of their likeness. As for synthetic performers like Norwood, studios would have to negotiate with the unions. Either way, AI isn't going away. This actor and AI filmmaker in Toronto thinks content with performers like Norwood should have their own genre.
Who knows, maybe down the depths of look, if you're scrolling next time on Netflix, there's like action, there's drama, there's horror, and then there might be a completely new category like AI.
Meanwhile, Particle 6's CEO has responded to the backlash. In a statement, she said Norwood is not a replacement for a human, and that AI is another way to build stories. Magda Gebre-Selassie, CBC News, Toronto.
Will you carry a kit? And then that way, if you see somebody, so you might not need the kit yourself, but you might run into somebody that needs help, right?
Some scenes from the streets of Edmonton, like a lot of places in the country. Drug use, drug addiction continues to take lives and pose challenges for policymakers. Here in Alberta, the provincial government has passed what it calls the Compassionate Care Act. And one of the things it includes is involuntary treatment for people who are addicted. That was the topic of a lively conversation on Cross Country Checkup. We're going to play some of that for you in a moment. But first, I want to chat with Chanel Twan. She's with Boyle Street, an advocacy group that works with those who are addicted in this neighborhood in Edmonton. And before we talk to her, I want to play a piece of tape you may remember from the National about a year and a half ago, a powerful moment where Chanel showed us pictures from the funerals and memorials she'd been to.
These folks are all people that come from our community, that we love, that we had relationships, that are no longer here, that we miss. We don't have enough room to show you who all our friends are, but all of our friends are gone.
Just wonder, in the last year and a half, is it getting better? Is it the same?
No, absolutely, it hasn't gotten better. In our city right now, we're seeing ambulance calls through the roof, breaking records here. Like, it almost feels like weekly.
The provincial government says it's doing something. You know, they call it compassionate care, and their focus is on treatment and, if need be, involuntary treatment. What do you think?
I think we could, that may, like I said, very well work for some folks. The reality is it's not going to work for everybody. And the folks that we need to worry about are the people who are on our streets dying today. This is where we need supervised consumption sites that allow for inhalation. We need permanent supportive housing that has wraparound supports built in, especially with a huge influx of people who are dealing with brain injury. But there's not, that's not a solution that is going to be enacted today to say, we're going to take everybody into treatment and we're going to lock them up and somehow magically there's going to be no drug poisonings and everything's going to be okay. The reality is people are dying today. They're dying yesterday. They're going to continue to die tomorrow if we don't do something. And I think it's, we want to blame somebody, the government, society, whatever. The reality is we are society. So we need to say something. We need to do something.
Right now, all of Canada is in the grip of this crisis, and we must do all we can to help Albertans who struggle with addiction.
Hi, I'm Ian Hadamansing in Edmonton, the first stop of Cross Country Checkup's 60th anniversary tour.
So let's call a thing what it is. This is, in fact, forced treatment.
Well, I don't think it's involuntary. I don't think that's a good idea. I'm a recovering addict. If you're making them go, it's going to make them resentful.
As a individual that had lived experiences with addiction, yes, I do believe that involuntary care is absolutely essential.
Our question, is involuntary treatment for addiction ever justified? When, if ever, should it be mandatory? We have two guests in the studio now, Angie Staines and Brandon Shaw. Welcome to our studio. You're a nurse, Angie, and the founder of 4B Harm Reduction Society, an Edmonton outreach group. Yes. And Brandon is your son, a co-founder of the society. Brandon, you've lived through addiction and involuntary treatment when you were young. Hi to both of you.
Hi, hello. Thanks for having us.
Angie, before I ask Brandon about his journey, I want you to tell me about the shift you were working in outreach as a nurse and discovered your son on the street.
It was a summer evening. We were out in the core here, not far, about 3 blocks from here. And I was told he was in a certain area, and I went to look, and that's when I found him experiencing a drug poisoning. It's hard to talk about, but I was able to revive him. I think the hardest part of that night was watching him walk away, knowing what he was gonna, not knowing what he was gonna do next or experience.
Brandon, it's hard for your mom to talk about it all these years later. What's it like for you to hear that story?
It's really hard. I remember walking away. I remember feeling very upset, kind of confused, and just disappointed that this was never in the book of cards that I had planned out, And I remember in that moment just feeling this overwhelming sense of just needing to get out of there and out of that space, and I just walked away.
And you were forced into treatment when you were 16 years old?
Yeah, when I was 16, yeah.
How did that work?
Didn't work out well. It sent me on, firstly, it sent me on a 15 years of just this massive spiral. It was something that was traumatic, very traumatic. I didn't come out of there healed. I didn't come out of there any skills or anything anything like that. I came out of there a better drug user. I came out of there traumatized. I came out of there criminalized. I came out of there feeling like a junkie and with quite literally no supports.
All right, let's go to the phones now, and Emily is calling from Ottawa. We're not using her full name because there could be consequences to her future employment. Hi, Emily.
Hi there.
You were in involuntary care in British Columbia. What was that experience like?
I mean, I would not be alive today if it weren't for that involuntary care. And I'm very happy to be alive. I think that involuntary care is justified, but I do not agree with government policy mandating it, because I see that from where I stand, I just don't think that we have enough infrastructure in place to really tackle what needs to be tackled.
Well, joining me now in the CBC studio in Edmonton is Superintendent Keith Johnson. He leads the Community Safety and Wellbeing Bureau of the Edmonton Police Service. Hi.
Hi, thanks for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for being on the program. You've been on the force for nearly 3 decades.
Yep.
How has the opioid crisis over the last few years reshaped Edmonton?
It's, in my almost 30 years, I can honestly say I've never really seen anything like it. And coming out of COVID and seeing the impact that fentanyl has had on the population has been has been very, very challenging for our frontline members, and it's something where we have to address it under the current laws that we have in both in the province and federal criminal code.
Let me, if I get the computer in the right place, go to Jillian Whittall. Yeah, Jillian Whittall is in Oakville, Ontario. Hi, Jillian.
Hi.
I know you have a tough story, a lot of loss within your family and your neighborhood, and that kind of informs your view of involuntary treatment. Tell us about that.
Yes, I'm very in support of it. I lost my brother in 2017. To a product of fentanyl called carfentanil. He left behind 3 children and a fairly large family. Last year, I lost my son, and he was 27. And, you know, he had a promising career. He was a contractor. He had his own business. He just could not deal with the addiction. He could not get into rehab. He couldn't get help. He was ashamed and, yes, had a lot of guilt. And our relationship was strained for a number of years.
Jillian, let me ask you this. I mean, knowing all you know about your son, do you think that involuntary treatment would have changed things?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because he would have seen a way out of his life. You know, he may not have liked, you know, sort of how the process went. But I believe that once he was there, once he got clean and could actually think and use his brain and realize people loved him, he wasn't a failure, lose the guilt, you know, through proper programming, I believe he'd be alive.
Jillian,
I really do.
Thank you very much for sharing your story. Coming up, Portland finds itself in the crosshairs of the U.S. president.
Portland burning to the ground. Portland, Oregon, it looks like a war zone.
Why Donald Trump has set his sights on the progressive city of coffee houses and eco-friendliness. Next.
That judge ought to be ashamed of himself.
An angry U.S. president reacts to a weekend ruling by a federal judge temporarily blocking Trump's plan to deploy troops in Portland.
Portland is burning to the ground. It's insurrectionists all over the place. It's Antifa.
An assertion prompting pushback from Portlanders and their politicians.
It's not a war zone. There's nothing here that's, you know, scary. I mean, I'm walking out here in a hoodie and shorts, for crying out loud.
So how did the progressive city in the Pacific Northwest find itself in the presidential crosshairs? Ashley Fraser tries to get to the bottom of Trump's fixation with Portland.
So why is Trump so focused on Portland?
Portland is unbelievable what's going on. Portland burning to the ground. Portland, Oregon, it looks like a war zone.
US President Trump has said he's directing the National Guard to the city, calling it war-ravaged. But that's not what people in Portland are saying.
It's just been declared the headquarters of domestic terrorism in the United States.
Constant battles going on behind me. It's just an absolute total war zone.
But is Portland a war-ravaged place? I don't think so.
Nate Hellman shot this TikTok video of downtown Portland recently.
I needed to see with my own eyes. I went to Pioneer Courthouse Square, went down there at that time and checked that out. And it was just very quiet, very calm.
So where's this conflict Trump's talking about? Well, for several months, there have been a small and persistent group of demonstrators camped out around the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office, or ICE facility. It's about 2 miles from downtown Portland. Now, while there has been some arrests made since June, these incidents have been contained in this area. And according to court documents, protests have been small in size. This is about as extreme as those demonstrations have got. But on Tuesday, Trump made the claim again that Portland looks like a war zone, followed by explaining he had seen it on television.
Well, unless they're playing false tapes, this looked like World War II.
Well, we don't know exactly what Trump saw. Fox News did edit this 2025 protest footage with footage from the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020. Those were largely peaceful protests, but certain demonstrations involved vandalism, arson, and property damage. Trump then said on Wednesday that he had called in the National Guard troops to respond to the protests outside the immigration office. Now, both the state and the city government have filed a lawsuit against Trump, calling the president's move unlawful and baseless. The lawsuit mentioned Portland's police bureau has more than enough officers to respond to the small, ongoing ICE facility protests. So with all this evidence of relative peace in Portland, why is Trump targeting it?
They target Portland in order to kind of hinder liberal progressive politics on a state level and on a national level.
Alexander Ross is a professor at Portland State University. He's observed many previous protests and says it's the city's politics that have made it a target. And Ross says that call goes back to Portland's history.
Portland was very much branded during the early 2010s as a sort of liberal utopia. A progressive place with coffee and beer. It was like an ambassador of the new progressivism under Obama. You had a sort of growth of protest movements here, then counter-protests by the right against the character of the city, or at least its branding.
Ross says that made the city a hotspot for right-wing protests during Trump's first term in office.
The thing that they were really attacking was the city of Portland, which is why thousands and thousands of people would show up to counter-protest them. They weren't all like, black-clad anarchists. They were just normal people who wanted to be left alone.
Then everyone remembers 2020, when a convergence of protests lasting almost 200 days came to a head in the city. Trump sent in 700 officers as a response, which led to further escalation.
There was the COVID-19 pandemic, there was terrible wildfires here, and there were major protests downtown. And so those three things sort of collided to make the city very, very tense. Ever since things calmed down here significantly.
And despite things calming down, the Trump administration still lists some of those previous protests as reasons for sending in the National Guard. And most recently, the Trump administration says it's rebranding its Department of Defense, calling it Department of War, with a focus on domestic threats.
We should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military.
Ross says military involvement in other cities like Washington and Los Angeles this year, along with the target on Portland, could be signs of a deliberate strategy.
He's sending in military forces in a way that could be escalated over time. Trump's record of just persistent escalation, I think that's kind of what we're looking at for 2026.
As we mentioned earlier, despite the judicial ruling blocking the deployment of Oregon's National Guard into Portland, California's governor says Trump is sending 300 of that state's troops to Portland instead. Some have already arrived. It's a move Gavin Newsom promises to fight in court. Here's another international story we're working on at the National.
From southern Israel, we enter Gaza. A dusty desert crossing guarded by Israeli soldiers we're not allowed to show. Driving 200 meters down a barren road just into the war zone. After 2 years of fighting and countless requests, this is the closest that CBC, that we've been allowed inside Gaza or any other foreign media. Prevented by the Israeli military, except on very, very tightly controlled tours like this one, where they have a particular thing they want to show, a narrative they want to get across.
Just so you know, please stay in this area. Don't go outside back to the cars until we gather back here.
We're brought to a parking lot holding aid deliveries that Israel says it's allowing in to feed Gazans, but says the UN is neglecting to distribute.
You can catch Sasha's full piece on the challenges of dispersing aid and covering the war in Gaza Monday on a special edition of The National, hosted by Adrian in Tel Aviv. Next, a Canadian para-athlete breaks his own championship record.
Last 200 meters, I tried to get a jump on everyone and kind of ran my way home.
Nate Tucker's incredible gold medal win in our moment. Well, you're looking at Canadian para-athlete Nate Tucker crossing the finish line to claim gold in the men's 1,500 meters at the World Para-Athletics Championship in New Delhi. This marks his third world title in the category, breaking the record he set 6 years ago in Dubai. And tonight, his hustle to victory is our moment.
Tucker's going to take the gold again. It'll be another world title for him.
Earlier today, I won my third world title at the World Para-Athletics Championships here in New Delhi, India. I run the 1500 meters. Throughout the race, I really stayed behind the pack for almost the first 1300 meters, and then the last 200 meters, I tried to get a jump on everyone and
Tucker hits the front for Canada.
Kind of ran my way home and was hoping that no one passed me before I crossed the finish line. I was undefeated internationally until I lost in Paris last year, and so I think I took for granted those world titles. I think I kind of forgot what really went into it. Key acclimation was one of the big factors. When I was racing, it could have been anywhere between 32 to 36 with 80% to 90% humidity, and that's something you have to train for. When I get home with my wife and my family and we're having a big get-together, that's when the celebrations will begin.
So his dad was a javelin athlete at the Olympics. His mother's a pole vaulter. One of his grandfathers played in the NHL. 3 generations of athletic excellence. Thank you for being with us here in Edmonton tonight. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to the National's YouTube channel. I'm Ian Hannah-Manson. See you tomorrow night on CBC News Network at 7 p.m. Eastern. Good night.